All right. Welcome back to the Partnership Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lavoie. Absolutely thrilled to have James Prince on the show. And James is the kind of partnership operator who doesn't treat partnerships like a channel or a program, or certainly not a slide deck. He treats them like a system, which is what we love in this group. He's built partnership programs at high growth startups, driven new lines of revenue at places like Borrowell, and now he's working on an embedded distribution channel at Remote. And what I like about how James thinks is he cuts through a lot of the noise. He's not about logos or TAM or how many sellers a partner has, but something most people completely overlook, which is willingness to work, which is something I really loved uncovering in our prep work. So today we're going to break down what actually separates partnerships that drive revenue from the ones that just look good on a deck. James Prince, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. It's been I was really excited to be on today, as well as it's just been amazing watching the quality of guests that you go through. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Amazing. Well, James, I'm a huge fan of yours. You kind of came out of nowhere. I'd been aware of you, and we'll get into this later, but James was the first ever winner of our Ecosystem Masters pitch competition, which is an intense Shark Tank style pitch competition where he had to pitch a hypothetical company, although it felt like a real company that you had invented, James, because you knew it so damn well. Esteemed judges, Rob Moore, Nelson Wang, Lauren Spence, very high stakes. James walked away as the winner of that. So you really impressed me then, and just in our follow-up conversations, you just are super sharp, looking into your background, your pedigree is really strong. So I'm personally very excited for this conversation.
Well, thanks, Chris. I was humbled to actually even just get into the pitch competition. Winning it was a big surprise. The person that I was up against, Rachel, was brilliant. She had a fantastic partner program, and then some of the judges were people that I actually genuinely respect and use their frameworks. Nelson Wang being one of them. I really appreciate the way that he thinks about partnerships, and he has taught me a lot. So it was really kind of like nerve-wracking to be in front of them. So I was very honored to win that, and I'm excited to see kind of the next set of those pitches.
Exactly. And I'm excited to work with you specifically on launching the next phase of competitions. But today we're going to learn more about you, your background, and how you think. And we start every episode off with what we call the Fast Five segment, which is just 5 quick-hitting, bite-sized questions to get you a chance to warm up and get our audience a chance to get to know you better. You ready for that? Just the first thing that comes to your mind.
Let's go.
All right, cool. First question. You meet a new partner, and within 5 minutes, you already know this is going nowhere. What did they say that told you, you know what, this is just going to be a total waste of my time?
I would say the thing that would stand out in the first 5 minutes is that they don't understand the value that our product is actually providing to their customers. They've misunderstood how either we go to market, but predominantly it's about the product value. They're coming and they know that I work for Remote right now. It's like we're an HR tech company. So they're like, oh, we want to do staffing. And it's like, that's not what our platform does. So it's like within the first couple of minutes, you're just like, you actually don't understand what we're doing.
Yeah, I cringe at that as well. I would always hate when I would get hit up. I'm sure you get this as well, like LinkedIn DMs, emails, like, hey, James, I want to get on a call. I think we can partner together. And it's like, okay, sure. You finally get on a call. And then they run you through this generic pitch deck. That's like their company sales deck. It's not even a partnership deck, let alone one tailored for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's like it's one of those programs that is clearly being set up to kind of measure activity. Like those partner managers or the BDRs or the BDMs are out to do activity, and they're having to show that their sales leads or their revenue leads that they're out there doing something. I pitched 25 different partners this month.
Yeah, exactly.
But as we'll get into, it's not necessarily about numbers.
It's certainly not those type of numbers. And incentives drive the behavior, and in that case, I totally agree with you. Okay, cool. That was a fun one. Next up, what's one partnership metric that looks impressive or perhaps is overused, but is completely useless or not that useful in your opinion?
From a program perspective, I would say from an overarching program perspective, total number of partners is one that always kind of throws me. Whether we're talking about marketplaces or we're talking about the number of referral or affiliate partners a company has. Sometimes they'll have that on their website. We've got 500 partners. Having a partner isn't the same as activating or driving value through a partnership. And over time, I've really realized that you don't necessarily need a lot of partners. You need the right partners. So I've really felt that seeing companies advertise the number of partners they have makes me feel that they're not really thinking about the actual outcomes. Now, that's it's not true of all companies, but it's just one of those metrics that when you see it, you're like, okay, like, are you
Yeah.
actually activating them? Is the program work? We don't know.
What percentage of them are actually active or yielding? I totally agree. And to be honest, that took me a long time to really understand. I think early in your career, perhaps this is relatable. You almost have this like customer success or like account manager mindset where it's like, oh, I'm assigned to this partner. I have to take care of them like a child. Like you don't neglect your children.
Absolutely.
This is a customer. It's
Yes.
like, no, not
Yeah.
really. It's a commercial relationship, and both sides have obligations to satisfy. And if you don't, there are real consequences with that. So I found that when I was coming up the ranks, I
Hmm.
felt like I had to make it was like whack-a-mole, like all of my partners had to be fed and be successful. And if they weren't, then I was failing. And then it took
Hmm.
so long to realize, like, you know what? What is the opportunity cost of me burning myself into the ground to make all of them successful, which I wasn't able to do? And then I realized the power of, obviously, like Pareto's principle, 80-20 rule. Does that resonate with you, James?
Definitely resonates with me. I remember when I was at my second partnership program that I was working on as a company that was pre-Series A. I was hired a little bit too early. We had a wide variety of different types of partners at that time that the CEO was all managing, and then she handed them all to me. And because she had held those relationships, I had that mentality. I had this customer success mentality that like, oh, the CEO had just handled all these, like they must be important, as opposed to kind of doing my own analysis and realizing that like most of them were not important at all and they weren't going to drive value. Um, and
Yeah.
in the end, it's like I ended up spinning my tires and I ended up getting laid off there because the partner program just wasn't valuable. And
Yeah.
it took them years to actually restart the program.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that personal anecdote. And I see that time and time again. I think it's like, all these rich celebrities bragging about how many cars they have, 10, 15 cars. Like, how many cars do you need? You can only drive one at a time, last time I checked. So
Yeah,
less is definitely more. Cool.
definitely.
Second last one, or one of the third one, sorry for you, is, and this is kind of comparing sales and partnerships. What's
Mm.
one thing you think that AEs do better than partner managers that perhaps we don't like to admit? Because while you think about it, I think we're supposed to have this really strong relationship with sales, but there's sometimes
Hmm.
this like competitive element. There's this like
Hmm.
lack of trust and respect element that I think is really pervasive and a negative thing. But I think there's a lot of things that sales does that I think we could learn from and even mimic. So I'm curious, what's
Hmm.
one thing you think sales teams and AEs do better that perhaps we should be adopting?
This is a tough one. Two things come to mind if you don't mind. The
Sure.
top two are like from a specific thing and like a sales rep would do that I think is better than a lot of partner managers is structured discovery. Like
Mm-hmm.
really thinking about like AEs are incredibly good at kind of getting to customer pain, understanding whether or not the product is the right fit for them or for selling multiple products, like which of the products are the right fit in which order. So I think that like AEs do like really good structured discovery and partner managers, myself included, especially early on in my career, can try to, round hole square peg a partnership if they like the logo, if they like the size, if you like there's other reasons, and you kind of get into this cycle of getting partners that are not the right fit for you. So I
Yeah.
think like being able to like do structured discovery, which then disqualifies sales sometimes really well,
Yes.
is really helpful. And then programmatically or like system wise, I think sales drives outcomes really well sometimes. Like it's
Yeah.
like, if the sales rep is trying to get something done, they will like fight tooth and nail to get it done. They'll get the executives on the call. They'll create a huge buying committee to make it happen. And sometimes partnerships, because of the underinvestment or the satellite nature of how the teams are set up, it's harder for you to kind of build that buying committee and drive to completion in the same way.
Yeah, those are two great answers. I totally co-sign on both of those. I love the way you framed like they do discovery well. And I actually coach discovery for partner managers in the sense that like, you should be aiming to disqualify. Like you're going in, I don't want to say pessimistically, but kind of, where it's like you're delighted that they like pass your rigorous test, so to speak. And you're like,
Yeah.
wow, they might actually be it, because and that puts a lot more value emphasis on the resources you have to give. And then on
Yes.
the programmatic side, driving outcomes, yes. And I think it's because like, look, AEs are on 50-50 commission splits, so they better deliver outcomes. But I also think they have better pipeline hygiene as well because they have to. Whereas the average partner manager, they have a pretty lazy sense, if I may say, of like understanding their pipeline. Whereas if I go to any partner manager, I'm like, hey, what's your pipeline health? They're like, oh, like 250K of active pipe, probably going to close 100K. But if I go ask those AEs working those deals that their names are on, they're like, no. That 50K deal just got moved to lost. So they're not as up to date, so to speak, and they're a little bit lax. So those are just some of my general comments, if that resonates.
Yeah, I think the understanding and, to give partner managers their due, sometimes because you're influencing the deals and you're not like owning the deal in the same way, it's a little bit
Of
harder
course.
to have pipeline hygiene. So I do want to do a shout out for partnerships there, but I agree with you
Of course.
wholeheartedly.
Sweet. Yeah, no, totally. Like, look, like you're not actually working the deal, but at the same time, your compensation in many cases is tied to that. So you have to
Yes,
like really bring that rigor.
you should be just as close. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Second last one here. And it's about the question is, what's one behavior from a partner that instantly earns your respect kind of in the early days? The first question I asked you was, what's like an instant turnoff that gives you the ick? So let's put a positive spin on it. What's something that a partner does early on? You're like, okay. You're like, you know what? This one could be a really strong partner for me.
This goes back to kind of like what you mentioned about me, and I know we're going to dig into it later, but like the understanding kind of some of those early response metrics of like how quickly
Mm.
they get back to you, whether or not they're willing to bring in a leader, whether or not they're willing to do like I'm working on like technical partnerships right now. So how willing are they to kind of like bring in their technical team to have a technical conversation? How quickly are they willing to do that? So I think all of those. It's about that really early activity where once you kind of get past the get to know you phase, that they're helping to drive it, and you're not.
Yeah.
It's not just you as the partner manager driving it. It's really about kind of like a shared outcome driving, and like you
Yeah, I
can see
love
that
that.
early on in like email response is the one that I think about. It's just like if they get back to me quickly, it's like, oh, okay, they're interested. Something's happening on the other side.
Yeah, I mean that opens up a whole other can of worms of like how much I think speed is an underrated skill. And like look, some things are just God given. We're born with certain intangibles. I think speed is something we can all commit to, and I
Hmm.
think it's an underrated
Hmm.
superpower.
Hmm.
But to your point on I love the phrasing of like willingness. I haven't heard anyone kind of portray it that way. But in our prep, the way you explained it, I think is fantastic, and we're going to dive into that in a whole segment. But I totally agree with that. Okay, cool. Let's get you out of the fast five and into the fun stuff.
All right.
And we always end these segments with this question. If partnerships as a profession disappeared tomorrow, what
Hmm.
would James Prince be doing with his career?
So the
There's no partnerships. You're out of the, and we can even go beyond that. Like just get out of go to
tech
market,
and
right? Yeah,
yeah,
you're
I'd
you're
have a
out of
go to
tech.
market. Oh,
Exactly. What are you doing?
I'm a chef,
Oh wow.
so I would be a chef. There's a tactile nature to it and a creativity that I love, and I also love the finite outcomes, where it's like you're getting to the end of a meal, right? Or so you're getting to putting the meal on the table. I'm from Toronto. There's a really nice culinary school there called George Brown. So I do classes there, and like yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it. If there was if I was a lot younger, I might get in. I might like switch careers.
Yeah,
But there's an element of like maybe when I'm
yeah.
old, like maybe that's my last chapter.
I love that. Yeah, my wife has done a number of those exact same George Brown classes
Oh,
here,
lovely.
probably around four. All right, well then I have to ask bonus question here, real quick.
Sure, go for it.
You've already done the Ecosystem Masters pitch competition. Let's just say you're in one of these fancy cooking show competitions, which we love to
Mm,
watch here in our household.
yeah.
It's the finale, meal for
Mhm.
your life. What are you cooking? Toughest question of the episode.
Meal for my
Single dish.
life.
Single dish.
I would probably do a Italian Thai fusion, kind of like a fettuccine Alfredo with a Thai twist on it, something like that. With
Oh,
like
bud.
shrimp, yeah, something like that.
I've
I
already
love doing
gifted you.
those.
I've already given you one trophy before. I'm ready to give you
Oh,
another one because speaking my love language there.
yeah, I love fusion cooking. Like you're bringing together a couple different like flavor profiles is incredible. Yeah,
I love that. Cool. Well, that was a fun warm up. Now let's get into the fun stuff. The first segment is one we always start with, which is origin stories and hard
yeah.
lessons on the early days. Okay, so for you, really interesting background, like a lot of folks in partnerships. You start out hosting corporate trips tied to fundraising, then you moved into partnerships at one of the biggest tech conferences in Toronto. So the first question is like, what were you actually learning in those early days that still shows up in how you operate now?
Uh, from those two, going back to the corporate trips, I think one of the incredible things that I was around at that point was the two founders that I worked for were probably some of the best like pitch people that I've ever seen. And watching them build relationships over the course of a long period of time, having dinners, making sure that they were in person, having little side conversations, really
Mm,
continues to show up in an asynchronous work by making sure we're doing on-sites with our partners. Today, like I will fly out for a 1 hour meeting with somebody because like that meeting might actually get us significantly farther than multiple kind of virtual meetings. So having and making sure I have that kind of one-on-one touch point in person is still incredibly valuable from running those corporate trips.
mm.
And then from the tech conference, and I know we're going to get into this a little bit from the hard lessons, but it's like being close to revenue early on. It's just like, and when I was in partnerships, it was like there's so much to do in partnerships, and you can, as you know, and all, you can spend unlimited number of hours trying to like influence and drive
You can
partnerships.
work
But if you're
nonstop.
nonstop, and I
There's
did
always work. Yeah, yeah.
when I was at that tech conference, I was working 12, 15 hours a day, like trying to get stuff across the line, trying to build decks and going to pitch meetings and doing all this stuff, but not being hyper focused on the activities that would actually get the revenue out the door.
Totally.
So it's just like, or revenue in the door, I should say. But it's yeah. So that was like the really big learning at the tech conference,
I
and
love
that
that.
still shows. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I like in the early part of your answer talking about like the value of in person, which goes beyond just the obvious. And I totally agree. I think the average in person meeting, if executed correctly, is worth like at least five Zoom
Yeah.
meetings, if that. So
Yeah.
I totally agree, and that'll show up a little bit later. And so then the next question is, do you remember a moment when partnerships, as you're starting to get into like partnership specific roles, is there a
Hmm.
moment where it really clicked for you as a career? And we ask this for of all guests, where it's like, oh wow, like I kind of got into this profession, seemed interesting, but now it's like I'm hooked. And for me, just as you think, for me it
Hmm.
was definitely, I get bored sometimes. Like I'm not
Hmm.
hyperactive, but I do get bored, right? And I love diversity in my life. And so for me, I'm
Hmm.
like, wait, I get to work at this company that I was hired by, which is a pretty cool company. And then I get like deep exposure into like all of these other tech companies like Shopify and Klaviyo and Google and all these.
Yes.
So for me, it
Yes.
was like,
Yes.
wow, it's like I get to work at a lot of other companies by proxy. So what was that moment like for you?
To be honest, Chris, it sounds like you and I are very similar in that exact in the way that you just described that. I am a systems thinker. My undergrad is in philosophy. Like I like to think kind of broadly around things. When I was first getting into startups and trying to figure out the next chapter of my career, I was leaving my MBA. I was looking at a bunch of different options. And when I got encouraged by a number of kind of like mentors at the time to look at startups, and I looked at all the different function areas within the startup, and no specific function area interested me.
Mm,
And then it's like, oh, partnerships works with all the function areas, and not just at the company that you're at, but also you help implement at another company and you understand their system. And that's really come to roost at working at remote with our embedded partnerships, where I work very deeply across a lot of different teams, both internally and with our partners. And I really and that it's really clicked here. I would say I've loved partnerships, but here at remote, it's like really kind of just like the eyes
mm.
open kind of. It's like, oh, I can actually influence whole organizations. And I'm working with organizations like Gusto and Personio that are like 2,000, 3,000 people. And it's like you're able to kind of
Yep.
influence across like multiple function areas and regionally. So it's very cool.
I love that. I love the way you describe that. And just to add on, like, and I imagine you're similar. I love to learn. Like I feel like when I'm not learning, I feel like I'm stuck in life, so to
Hmm.
speak. I'm just not as happy. When I am learning, it's the opposite. And for me, it's like, say you join a company, let's just say you're in a specific ecosystem, could be fintech, could be e-commerce, could be housing,
Yeah.
whatever. For me, it's like I am learning so much faster about the industry that exists within like where I'm at in the universe because I'm exposed to all these different companies. I'm talking to so many different stakeholders across different functions, across different companies. So
Hmm.
my understanding of where my company and my product sits within the customer life cycle of the industry that I exist within that
Hmm.
journey has been rapidly accelerated versus other jobs that I've been in, which were not partnerships. So I don't know if
Yes.
that resonates as well with you, James.
Yeah, I would say the largest point of kind of like leverage from learning was when I was at Vidyard. I managed the
Mm,
channel partner sales program for sales consultants.
mm,
So I got to work directly with some of the largest sales organizations in the United States, which was just an unbelievable time. Like Sandler is one of the big sales
wow.
organizations, Challenger Sales is another one, Winning by
Yep.
Design is another one. And I was working with them all directly to help sell our product. But because of that, I was getting inundated with all these different ways to build revenue and to sell and all these different sales methodologies and how to go to market. And like it dramatically changed the way that I thought about revenue because it's like I'm literally talking to the people who write the sales books to teach all the sales teams how to sell. And you're like, oh,
I
so
love
you
that.
and then trying to position our product within their methodology. So it's like
I love
so
that.
it's like it was such a it was like I will hold that experience forever because it changed the way that I thought about revenue and how I thought about sales and those type of systems.
I love that. I love that. We do a lot in the community. We're trying to do more of like attracting people to get into the partnership profession. So this last
Hmm.
little segment, I'm definitely going to emphasize on because I think it speaks to some of the real tangible benefits of the profession itself.
Hmm. Hmm.
So now let's wrap up this segment by talking about something you had mentioned in our prep, which is
Yeah.
early lessons, early tough lessons, which we always cover on the show. Early
Hmm.
on, you said you were a big picture thinker, which can be great in some contexts, but also dangerous because it can slow you down. Can you
Yes.
walk us through that experience and what did it look like in practice?
Yeah. So the first two partner program and partnership roles that I had, one was at the tech conference, and the one after that was at early stage startup called Virtual Gurus out of Calgary. And in both of those instances, I focused too much on kind of broadly how the partnerships were positioned inside our organization, how we positioned them externally, and thinking about the program as a whole, as opposed to getting specific to I need to work actually with this one partner because they have the highest likelihood to drive revenue for the organization, and that's where I need to focus. It's not about program building. It's not about how do I communicate more effectively internally. It's actually being like laser focused early on driving revenue. And then over time, once you kind of build some of the processes and you get up and you start to kind of like ladder yourself up, but you start with that revenue goal and you hold on to that revenue as tightly as you can because like that's how you show the value for your organization. And like I early on, yeah, I was like too much of like a partnerships. I'm strategic.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
big picture thinker. It's like no, no, no.
yeah, yeah.
Revenue is the lifeblood of the organization. You are here to help drive revenue. And ideally, if you're a partner manager, you have a unique opportunity to do like you can you're a very significant lever. You can 10x organizations with a good partnership. You can drive 10 times the sales that an AE drives. So it's like
Yep.
really being focused on that is like something that it took me a while. It took me a while to learn, and then it's like, and then you can kind of build on top of it, and then become a bigger picture thinker.
For totally, and I appreciate you sharing that because I think a lot of people listening will take a sigh of relief because it's like, okay, that sounds like exactly what I'm struggling with, which is something I certainly struggle with. And I think it's like, look, incentives do drive the behavior, and a lot of us do have some quota
Hmm.
hanging on
Hmm.
our head. Maybe we have
Hmm.
like 10, 20, 30, 40, fifty
Yeah.
percent of our total compensation contingent on some commission. That being said, it's easy to just we're humans. As humans, we crave to be busy, and we can trick ourselves into thinking that just because we were like busy in a day or a week, that we were
Yes.
productive. And
Yes.
activity does not equal productivity. I think is
Agreed.
a key takeaway.
Totally. I
Cool.
totally agree with that statement.
Okay, cool. Well, now let's take a transition now because everything you're saying feels very execution, which is great. So now let's actually talk about how you elevate partners today. And so this
Sure.
next segment is on willingness to work is greater than
Mm.
everything else, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
you said something that I think most people wouldn't maybe necessarily agree with right away, but they will certainly after they hear you, which is that
Yeah.
willingness work matters more than TAM, size, or revenue. So break that
Yes.
down for me. What does willingness to work actually look like?
Sure. This is a phrase I got from one of my leaders at some point. I can't remember which one. I think it was Ashley Gray at Vidyard. She's the one that came up with this phrase. I also want to shout out Nelson Wang, who we talked about earlier. because he in one of his frameworks he calls it commitment, and he has it as the number one out of the three that he has, as well as his three C's. I can't remember the other two, but I think the way that I think about willingness to work is that when a partner is willing to work with you, they are going to drive outsized returns, which may not you might not think are possible in their TAM. You might be able to get to a significantly larger amount of their TAM. Their sellers might be able to go above and beyond in a way that like you're not able to do at a larger organization. And they might be able to get you to some of their enterprise or larger customers if they're willing and they see the value of your product. You have them incentivized properly. And willingness to work is also a metric that kind of reflects the macro environment as well. So what I want to say there is there's a willingness to work, and why are they willing to work is the question, right? You can take a look at them externally and say, wow, our ICPs seem to line up. The TAM line, like they have a huge TAM. They've got 1,000 sellers, 500 sellers, 50 sellers, whatever the size of program you're building. This should work. But if the macro environment isn't right for them to partner with you, if their strategic rocks don't align with yours internally, they're not going to do anything with you. So willingness to work for me is also a metric where it's like right time, right place comes into that because they are going to be wanting to drive it. And I've seen this at every partner program I've worked at, where it's sometimes there's a smaller partner that absolutely surprises you because they are really willing to work. They understand the value of the product. They understand the value of the customer value proposition. Maybe their product team is really poor, so they're like, okay, I need something else to help monetize my existing customer base.
They're hungry.
And they're hungry, right? So yeah, that's like that. And that hunger will mean that they might get their executives involved. If you have a partner manager that's hungry, their organization might be, their board might get involved. All these things, like you might be able to align a whole organization around your partnership.
Exactly.
In a way that doesn't matter the rest of the other metrics for me. So and then what you end up getting is like this crazy alignment that is, in using a marketing term, they're pulling you. You're not pushing it, right? Like they're pulling you along,
I love that.
which is a gift. And I know as all the partner managers listening, you've had one or two of these, and you're like, it is amazing to work with a partner like that, where you're not pushing the rock up the hill, the rock's rolling down the hill.
Yeah, and that was a fantastic segment. And I think that last point is important because it's like, look, I think we can all point to at least one partner, and it's like, well, wouldn't it be better if you just spend way more time trying to find those partners? And I know it's scary, right?
Yes.
But they don't just magically happen overnight. So if you can index your time on that, obviously that's a huge outcome. But I agree with everything you just said, and I love how you phrased it. I'm going to play devil's advocate and challenge you,
Always.
not on the premise, but on a scenario. So let's just say I say to you, hey, James, okay, I buy into this willingness to work thing, but let's just say I'm a VP of partnerships. We have several hundred partners in our program, and only 20 to 25% of them are like truly active, right? Now, I trust that my fleet of partner managers validated that these partners were willing to work, right? But now, fast forward 6 to 12 months, right? Only 20 to 25% of them are active. So are you saying, James, that my team wasn't good enough at detecting partners that were willing to work? Which is to say that maybe they were willing to work in the early days, but like things dynamically evolve. So how do you reconcile that, where it's like, okay, we let in 1,000 partners. Are you telling me that we did a shitty job qualifying that they were all willing to work? Like what happened along the way? So how do you kind of walk through that mental model?
Okay, that's a really good question. I think you kind of answered the question in the question, which I really appreciate, which is about like, it can change.
Yeah.
So no,
exactly.
There are metrics and matrices, the decisions that you can get to, looking at activity levels, understanding, oh, we had really great executive alignment. We had meetings with the CEO and he said that we're going to do this. We had like marching orders. We had the right technical people in the room, and then it all dried up. And you're like, yeah, because going back to willing to work, the macro environment might have changed. Their funding might have dried up. There are pieces to it that you don't know. So it can change, and that is in it. And as you know, as we all know, as partner managers, you're sometimes the last to know about that.
Well, yeah, well said. But you should be the
You should be the first. Ideally, you're the first if you got a good person across the table. But sometimes it's just things change.
That's what I was hoping you'd say, and so that's kind of why I was a little facetious there. But yeah, no, that's the point I wanted to get across. And look, we're running this huge report right now. It's March of
I'm excited for this.
2026. Yeah, exactly. With HubSpot, PartnerStack, and Crossbeam, and hundreds of respondents. One of the questions is like, hey, regardless of how many partners you have that are like active partners, what percentage of them are like actually active and yielding in the last like quarter? And the median is literally 27%, right? So this is a huge problem, and it's a lazy conclusion is, oh well, we just did a crappy job picking partners. It's like that's not it. That's the tip of the iceberg. You probably got like 70 to 80% hit rate on like picking the right partners, give or take. But as you said, James, things change, and so the big takeaway is you need to have an instrument, a mechanism for measuring and monitoring how partners are evolving. Are like low performers, and then all of a sudden things change. They get a new leader. They go up market, they go down market, they expand into new geo, and all of a sudden they're a good fit. And then likewise, you have a great fit partner who's crushing, and your main point of contact leaves. Their industry gets hit. Silicon Valley Bank fails, and all of a sudden they're going out of business. So I think the big takeaway here is, A, do your best to pick the right partners up front, obviously, but you have to be aware in real time, at least a quarterly cadence of how are my partner portfolio changing, and who's hot, who's not. And how can you reshift your capital deployment method to index on the highest leverage partners and then pull away resources respectfully from the ones that are underperforming? Do you think that's a fair conclusion there, James?
I would say it's a very fair conclusion. I would, yeah, the opportunity cost or that opportunity analysis and cost benefit analysis on like where you're doing capital deployment, resourcing, if you're doing product updates, like what's on like the engineering and product roadmaps, all of that is needs to be adaptable. You like partner programs are not, especially in today's world with the advent of AI, so things are easier to change as well. But it's really necessary that you're like highly adaptive to like what your partners need and which ones are the right ones to work with at the right time. So I agree with and finding that analysis. It's really interesting because I've never thought of like having that internal kind of analysis of like when and how to work with your partners. Like there's I don't know if you know Clay AI with like the advent of kind of like signal analysis on like marketing.
Yeah,
it's like I haven't heard the same for partners. So I think that's a really interesting. Interesting like area of opportunity, I guess.
Well, it was really hard. I appreciate you sharing that, and it was really difficult pre-AI to reconcile so many data points multiplied by so many partners. Now with AI, it's totally unlocked. And I just gave this webinar last month on like the AI stack for partner management. And one of the 10 plays I showed was if you pull the right signals, you can have automated in real time updated reporting on like your literally stack ranking of all your partners per metric, like momentum, influence, alignment. You can put weighting models within each of those metrics that are automatically calculated, and it's not subjective. It's just like, hey, look, how much pipeline has this partner sourced us in the last 90 days or 30 days? How many reps do we have aligned as evidenced by like contributions in the last 90 days? And then it's completely formulaic. And so I would run this report monthly or at least quarterly, and it's like, okay, last quarter these partners were hot and these partners are cool. Well, now the picture, it's like a stock index ticker.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no reason in the AI world that you can't have something like this, especially for larger portfolios.
Agreed. And like you start to have the external like data enrichment tools, like as I said, like Clay
exactly.
or Apollo or Zoom Info or your
the macro environment around these partners.
You have the right scanners as well from a macro environment. It's like, are they hiring? Are they not hiring? Was there like funding? Like a series, like you can.
I didn't even add that. Like, that's smart. I like that. That's the external macro variables. I like that.
Yeah, because like that, all of a sudden it could be like, oh, like this partner hasn't worked with us, but they just raised $100 million. They're trying to enter China. They're trying to enter EMEA now. Can we help them? Oh, we have a huge EMEA base. Of course we can help them. Like maybe now's the time for us to kind of pick them up. Yeah,
they just acquired someone who now is probably going to compete with us, right? That's a red flag.
Exactly.
That happens at least once in a year with one of your partners. So I love that.
It's like with the type of partnerships I'm working in now, it's one of the challenges with our commercial, not challenges. It's like, it's with our commercial agreements. It's like exclusivity on whether or not they're allowed to work with other partners that are similar to us, whether or not they're like acquisition, how much lead time is on all that. Yeah, no, it's a serious risk.
I like that. Big takeaway here is like, look, you can have real-time reporting and monitor your partner portfolio dynamically, enriching with both inside information that you have on the data and then external macro information. I think is great. Okay, cool. Well, look, that was a super fun segment. Now that we've
Hmm.
filtered for the right partners, now let's talk about what most teams completely get wrong after that. And so this next segment is called "Why Most Partner Programs Are Just Theater," right? And these are some of your words. So
Yeah.
look, you said something in the prep that I think Will might hit a nerve, but in a good way, which is that enablement is not the end of the journey,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
we're gonna dig a lot into this because I think you're totally right. Enablement is a dangerous buzzword that gets thrown around.
Yeah.
And one of the contexts that you might hear this is like a boss might hammer their partner manager, be like, look, we're not hitting enough pipeline from this partner because you're not enabling them enough. We're
Yes.
enabling them in the right way. So the first
Yes.
point blank question for you, James, is why is enablement so overvalued in partner programs, and where does it actually break down in reality?
Um, so what I'm going to say here is one of the challenges with being able to measure everything is that it leads us to looking at the wrong metrics. So enablement is an easy thing to look at. Number of sellers in the room. Did they complete the training? Did they go through all the training? How many times have they looked at it again? And we can look at those metrics. It's easy for a boss, especially as you look across like an entire partner program, to have those metrics ladder up to them and look at them from an activity perspective. But those metrics aren't connected to, are you incentivizing the sellers to sell well? Are you incentivizing the company to sell well? Is that company prepared to actually sell for you? Or are they selling three other, to your point, what you said earlier, three other competing products and we're actually fighting like three other referral programs at the exact same time? So the sellers are enabled, they know ours, they just provide the options to the customer and the customer picks. Right. So it's like there are different, I think
It's very
thinking that the
top of
partner
funnel.
does yeah, thinking that the partner doesn't know about us, I think is a tough one. It's like knowledge is an important, and don't get me wrong, we have phenomenal enablement with our partners. We have huge enablement at remote. I've done enablement for lots of my partners, but that needs to be coupled with incentives, and it needs to be like that. So I think that that's for me where enablement sometimes falls down is like when we're not enabling and incentivizing simultaneously, and then even driving short-term behavior change after enablement with like elevated spiffs or elevated rev
Sure.
share agreements. Um, so like that's really, and like I think obviously enablement is incredibly important. If you
Yep.
can, getting into like the real-time systems of your partner, of getting into their enablement programs, so like
Sure.
your referrals at part of their existing systems and all that kind of stuff is incredibly important and valuable, but only if they're actually incentivized to act. Like
I
just
love that.
because someone knows something doesn't mean that they're going to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're gonna drill down here. And look,
Yeah,
I think
please.
of everything in the business world as like a funnel, especially now running a business. Everything's a funnel. What you just described is effectively enablement is like this really powerful and important top of funnel vehicle. But to be clear, it is top of funnel. And
Yes.
where does our commissions and quota come from? Bottom of funnel, deals crossing the finish
Yes.
line. So your quota lives at the bottom of the funnel. Your enablement stops short of like the transition layer between top of funnel and middle of funnel. So you have to figure out how to bridge that top of funnel enablement with middle of funnel pipeline generation, which James is saying is incentives. And before
Hmm.
I ask you the next question, I'll add a personal anecdote in building my own
Please.
business. At this stage, we have pretty solid product market fit for like our core offering. I would say our enablement and awareness in the market is good, but
Hmm.
that doesn't necessarily translate into like bona fide bookings and pipeline generation. So I've had to
Hmm.
learn a lot about attaching incentives. Like, hey,
Hmm.
like I'll reach out to a VP of partnerships, which I do from time to time, and I'll look to book a meeting so I can understand their team's needs and perhaps get something cooking. Whereas before, maybe I thought my copy was so strong they would book, and now it's like, hey, look, I'll run a free diagnostic survey, right? Like I'll give
Yes.
some incentive to like get you to act, and then I've got you
Hmm.
hooked. So now the next question for you is, I know
Mm.
you said that incentives matter more than enablement for this next phase. So what does a properly incentivized partnership actually look like? So you're enabling them well. Let's just say that you're doing a good job enabling them well. What's the next key step? What does good incentive structures look like?
Good incentive structures would be there has to be alignment between kind of three factors, I would say. One is are you helping to so first the sales organization and marketing organizations, are they incentivized? So like how are you connected to either existing quota or specifically extra money on top of? So if it's just a referral or a lead pass, is there extra money that is attributed to your program specifically? The organization needs to be incentivized in some capacity. So like recurring revenue, one-time shares, profit sharing, equity. There's lots of different ways to incentivize the actual organization. And lastly, which we haven't talked about a lot, but it kind of goes back to the willingness to work in macro environment, is like, is there product market fit for the customer? Right? So it's like, are you actually creating value for the endpoint customer? Because like a sales rep, if they see, even if they're not incentivized perfectly, if they see the value for their customer and it increases like close rates on their normal product, if they see kind of the synergy between your products, that might be enough value actually, right? If they actually work really well together and the close rates go up like 10% by attaching your product to their product, they might do it on their own just because close rate goes up and their normal commission is enough of the structure. So I think it's really kind of, you have to, going back to being a systems thinker, you have to think about the system and understand that specific partner. And a lot of partner programs that I've been a part of, the ones you see in the market, they might have like a very cookie cutter approach to how they build incentives with organizations, which means they might be like, well, we offer that organization 20%. And you're like, oh, okay, but that might not be enough. They might be struggling with close rates. So we need to actually think about going back to structured discovery, figure out exactly what their pain is at the time. Are they trying to get into EMEA? And like, that's what we're going to help them with. Are they trying to increase close rates? And that's how you can actually help them and get them across the line as a partner manager. So I think like really understanding kind of like the structure of the business that you're going into, how their incentives work already, and working within their system as much as you can. But that means that you have to have an adaptable partner program, and you have to be very aligned with your own finance team and your own executive
100%.
team to be able to like be like, hey, I'd like to actually change
Yeah, yeah.
how we
Can't be writing
incentivize
checks
these, and we need
that can't be cashed.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
fantastic breakdown. I think that was one of the more powerful segments. And two additional points that I'll just add on,
Yeah.
and beyond the one that you just said, like building with your finance team, because I think that's such an underrated thing to do. If you build something and actually like start selling it to partners and it hasn't been vetted yet, you're going to be burned and you're going to burn your trust internally. So be careful there. But two other things I'd say. I love that you framed like personalized and tailored incentive structures on a per partner basis. I think that's key. You can have like a general foundational incentive structure because you can't reinvent the wheel for every single partner. But you need, for the biggest ones, you need to know precisely what it is they would care about most. Are they trying to expand in EMEA? Are they trying to go up market or down market or go horizontal? Like understanding the specific value that would behoove the C-suite with your partner company is critical. And then the other piece I'll say that I've always focused on the incentive side, like incentives drive the behavior. I'm a big fan of like a tiered pyramid style incentive structure where it's like, look, the biggest outcomes you deliver obviously unlock the biggest incentives or earnouts, so to speak. But like if I'm trying to enable a partner's customer facing teams, CS, account management, sales, like what I really want is them to source me a deal that closes and they'll get rewarded for that. But what I really actually want them to do to start is like take a meeting with me. Okay, great. You get a $15 to $20 Uber Eats voucher. Okay, great. Then I want you to send 5 emails to your clients with email copy that I will give you hand personalized, right? And you just got to BCC me in those emails. Okay, great. Here's another $25 Uber Eats voucher. So like I'm a big fan of like this like tiered incentive program where they're getting warmed up. And then they're like, oh, wow, this is actually easier than I thought. And so I'm trying to like simplify things through micro incentives that will lead to those big macro payouts. Does that kind of align with some of the ways you operate, James?
Absolutely. I think like it's a tried, tested and true method of like crawl, walk, run.
Sure.
I think like I like starting with small incentives, trying to get the behavior. If you're working broadly across a sales team of like, I don't know, pick a number 10 even, and you do exactly what you said, is like, who's taking the meeting with you? Okay, it's those 3 people. Great. You're going to keep trying to get to the meeting with the other people, but these 3 people have a willingness to work with you. So focus on them. And then it's like, and so then you go up to your next set of behaviors that you're trying to encourage, and maybe eventually you only get to 1 rep that's actually working with you, but that you close 2 or 3 deals, and that's usually enough of a good news story that you can go back to the sales manager and be like, look, everyone should be doing this. And then 100%. You can kind of get. So some of that sometimes is super frustrating because things are a lot slower than you hope because you can't do it for them. However, that type of kind of like slow, methodical activity that you're doing across multiple partners will yield results over time.
100%. 100%. Okay, cool. So let's keep it moving here and flip into the next segment. So this is where your thinking starts to separate a bit. I think one of the things that makes you stand out. So you're not just running partnerships, you're structuring them. And
Hmm.
you've already said how you're a systems thinker. So now let's talk about your
Hmm.
revenue architect mindset. So
Yeah.
you've built this version of the bow tie model
Yeah.
into your QBRs as an
Yeah.
example and call it a game changer. So walk us through that. What did you actually change and what does that actually look like in practice?
Great. So I mentioned earlier about my working with Winning by Design. So I really want to call out that organization. You said everything looks like a funnel. When I first saw this model, it kind of like everything clicked for me, where it's like the revenue funnel turned on its side, and it actually looks like a bow tie. Where on the side you have awareness, you go through conversion in the middle, and then your customer value grows on the other side. So it's just like this really kind of like
I like that.
elegant way to think about how you acquire customers, how you close them, how you activate them, and then how you grow them. And so what we did is we were able to kind of get one of our biggest partners here at Remote on board with reporting this way because the way that we partner at Remote right now is I work on embedded partnerships, which means we embed our service inside other platforms and they have to do the selling. It becomes their product, almost like a white label, but a lot deeper. It's called like embedded. And but to do that, I have to work across almost every function area at their organization that has a cross tie with every function area at our organization. So it's a lot of data and a lot of information, and it's hard to kind of have like a dashboard. And we have dashboards, but they have like, as you would imagine, a ton of metrics on them. So it's like, how do we boil this down into something that is digestible?
I like
So
that.
we hold all of the primary metrics, so like total lead sources, how many leads, close rates of those leads that turn into opportunities, those opportunities into close won opportunities, and just be able to see all the percentages over month. And we just update it every month. And it became this really easy way for us to see kind of the health of the partnership where we weren't being successful, whether that was like we weren't growing our customers effectively, we weren't closing effectively, churn is a lot higher this month than we expected, what's going on there. And it allows you very easily when you're working with kind of executives for them to look at it all and be like, what's happening right there? And you're like, great, you're right. What is happening right there? Here are the activities below that thing that we need to talk about. Here's the plan against why that's happening, whether it's macro, micro, it's like internal, external, whatever it is. And then you kind of build a plan against kind of that. And what that allowed me to do is really think about the whole structure, like from a revenue architecture perspective. It's like, okay, where are those leads coming through? Okay, the leads are down. Why are they down? Okay, which of the lead sources are down? And you kind of keep digging deeper and deeper, but you're able to see it in this very kind of like small slide that allows you to do that. And we just recently got to automation, which means they're automated on a monthly basis now. So it's this really great way to kind of just like take a look at it and go like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Why are leads down from the mid-market sales team? That's interesting. What happened this month? And you can then go talk to like that sales manager and see what happened. So it's like you're able to have this like very kind of like comprehensive picture.
I
Um,
love that.
so
I think a
yeah,
lot of
so like revenue
yeah.
architecture. It's also wanted to shout out while we're talking about it, the CRO of Gong, who's no longer the CRO of Gong. He is now the chief revenue architect of Gong, Shane Evans. So he's actually
Super.
changed his title to this title. So I think it's something that you're going to start seeing a lot more of as we start talking about like systems and AI.
I love that. That was a fantastic breakdown. And I can see the value, certainly for your larger partnerships, but any mid to large size partnership that you're mentioning, I think that's great. I think the automation piece is key. But I don't know how you can operate a successful partner program and successful partnerships if you actually don't bring this type of model. So we'll link the bow tie model in once
Hmm.
we publish this episode. But I think that's great. Okay, cool, James. Look, we're going to get into the stretch run now. Just a couple one-off questions to get us out on
Let's
time.
go
You ready
for
for
it.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So, first question is, and I mentioned it earlier. You won our Ecosystem Masters pitch competition. So the
Yeah.
question isn't so much about that, but I'm curious, what did going through that process, teach you, or what did you learn going through that process? Just walk us through that whole experience, and why do you think it's so important to be able to defend proposals? Because that was really the heart of the competition. Is like, hey, look,
Hmm.
you're pitching for budget. There's only so much budget to go around and resources to go
Hmm.
around, and it could go to marketing, could go to sales, could go to partnerships. So, what was your experience like going through that? And then, why do you think it's such an important skill to sharpen? That being able to pitch with confidence and then defend it to the leadership group.
Yeah. What did I learn? I think the thing that I primarily learned was it was really about kind of thinking about my audience. And like, I think I spend a lot of time thinking about my audience. It's like, who's in the room? What are they going to
Nice.
be thinking about? Why are they making these decisions? So that really helped me. And then why that's important, both thinking about the audience, but why pitching is important is because in a world where cognition and decision making becomes ubiquitous, in a world where data becomes easy to get, everybody can look at data, everybody can like ask ChatGPT to come up with something. You being able to look at people, stand up in front of them and be able to articulate value and actually be able to defend why that
Yeah.
is going to show that you're able to execute on it, I think. And I think that's going to be start to be a larger marker as we continue through this like evolution of AI, is the ability to convince somebody is going to become more valuable because
I
anybody can
love
ask
that.
ChatGPT to come up
Yeah.
with a pitch. Like, but do
Yep.
you believe in it and do you understand it? And like when you're asked to defend, that's
Yeah.
when someone knows whether or not you understand it.
I think that's one of the best articulations of why just communication skills, just to like zoom out on what you just said, is going
Yeah.
to be not just critical, but like advantageous to develop and maintain in this AI world. Because look, AI is going to run all these workflows and it will make some decisions. But at the end of the day, the highest leverage decisions, there will be one final stopgap, which is a human making a decision and a human on the other side persuading them to do so. So I
Yes.
totally love everything you said about that. So anyone listening, sharpening your communication skills is a cheat code in the old era for climbing the ladder, but it certainly is now. I think it's a 10x advantage.
I would agree 100% on that. I think it's becoming more and more valuable, which goes back to like even in-person meetings and the value of in-person meetings, be able to sit down with somebody and understand what they're trying to do and whether or not you can work with them. Like that is going to become, to your point, like a cheat code and a 10x opportunity.
I love that. Cool, James. Well, we'll get you out of here on this. This is one of the last questions we always ask our guests, which is just around staying sharp, so to speak.
Yeah.
And look, partnerships is one of the most under-supported roles in GTM, I think, compared to the other functions. I say that with
Yes.
confidence. So I'm curious, how does like you're super smart, obviously, but that's not enough. So how does James Prince personally stay ahead and not plateau, not get rest on your laurels, so to speak? How do you personally stay sharp? What does that look like for you on a zooming out on a 1 year cadence?
On a 1 year cadence, every Christmas-ish, when I'm on break, I put together a list of somewhere between 10 and 20 business books that I'm going to read over the course of the year. I usually get through about half of them, maybe less, but I have the list and I keep, and then I pick it up for the next year. Everything. I read product books, I read revenue books, I read marketing books across the board. Like I'm trying to understand what everybody's up to, and what are the new ways to do it. And secondarily, I continue to network. Like I think the you learn a lot from other people and how they're thinking and the way that they're approaching the problems. And the best way to do that is by like adding them to LinkedIn and hopefully they're big posters and content people. And you just like learn through that as well. And then meeting
Yep.
really smart other people and listening to what they're up to.
Likewise. Well, thanks for sharing that, James. I think reading is an underrated skill. Connecting with people as well. And like, look, like it's maybe unrealistic that you're going to get all these people to like be your official mentor and get on all these like monthly calls, but like, can you have back and forth async conversations? Can you just, I'm a big fan, anyone listening, if there's some big shot like James who you would love to get FaceTime with, don't ask like, hey James, can you be my mentor? Right? Say, hey James, I'm facing this one very particular challenge that I think you're well suited to provide me advice on. Do you mind just commenting on this? Right? And I'm sure James will eventually get back to you. Now you've had an impression on James. It's like, oh look, this person didn't just ask me for like an hour of my time every month. They
Hmm.
understood what I'm an expert in. They asked me a point
Hmm.
blank question, and then voila, I got them. That's how I got Rob Moore as a mentor. That's how I've got a few other folks
Mm.
like Jay McBain. So don't ask for them to be your mentor. That's not realistic. Ask them a point blank question. Skip the pleasantries. Even it's like, hey James, big fan of yours. Here's this precise problem I'm facing. Can you comment on this? Would really help me out in a jam. Does that kind of resonate with you, James?
I think that is phenomenal advice. I would say the other piece that is really important if you're a big reader is read the book called why am I blanking on it? It's called Weak Connections. It's about the network effect, and it's actually about how the weaker connections in your network are the ones that generate the most value for you over time. So having
Interesting.
connections like that, where you have like you've interacted with that person a little bit, that's actually where you can eventually get value from. The people that know you, the strongest connections, you don't actually receive as much value from. So it's like that
Yeah.
part of networking theory. You're spot on. It works exactly. It's really good.
Look, like my whole business has been built on top of connections and LinkedIn. So I totally agree. Like seriously, like if I think some of the biggest breakthroughs and lucky breaks, so to speak, they typically didn't come from like my like tier one cohort of connections. So you never know who's going to be able to help you out down the line.
Absolutely.
Cool. Look, James, I could keep going all day long, but I know you've got a life to live and a job to run. So thank you so much. This was seriously tactical and valuable. So I can't thank you enough, and I can't wait to get this episode live.
Appreciate it, Chris. Really looking forward to continuing to work with you. So thank you.
Amazing. All right. Until next time, if you like what you heard, subscribe to the Partnership Mastermind podcast wherever you like to listen. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.
All righty. Cool.